Good morning. Thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I'm your host, Dr. Angela Chester, where we like to, say it with me, enlighten, inspire, and empower you to become your best self. So today, my guest is author Joyce-Marie-Lewis. She is out of the Las Vegas, Nevada area, and she is sharing her book, I Must Be About My Father's Business. So today we are talking about learning to lean on God. She says that she was raised in a foster home by a Methodist preacher and his family. She was placed there by another foster mother. While there, she went to vocational Bible study every day after school from the age of 9 to the age of 14. During this time, she started teaching Sunday school. She started writing for the church and speaking on church programs. At the age of 15, she was already considered to be an author. She started taking piano lessons at the age of 10. Shortly after, she had been baptized. She wrote programs for Black History, Easter, and the Christmas play of the birth of Jesus, and other programs as well. She went on to teach the mission, the children, and the youth. And she also directed the youth and the children's choir. As a little child, all of 5 years old, when there was a particular tragedy that happened, she realized that there was no one that she could depend on. However, she found one thing to be true, is that she could depend on God. So without any further ado, let's go on and bring Joyce into this conversation, because I cannot wait to have her witness and share with you. Good morning, Joyce. How are you? Thank you so much for joining me on Daily Spark.
I'm fine. How are you?
I am well. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
You're welcome. I'm all excited.
I'm glad. Thank you so much for being here. So I have to ask you, I always like for authors to be able to explain, of course, the title of their book. I Must Be About My Father's Business. What made you decide to entitle your book that?
When I was 5 years old and I was taken away from my mom, I didn't really have anyone to depend on except the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
And I had been in church, and I would started singing real early in the choirs and everything. And the only time I was really, really happy and at peace was when I was in the church and doing something concerning anything that had to do with God for the people. That was very rewarding to me as a child, and it carried on through my adulthood, and I stayed with that because it was real.
And isn't it important? I like how you said it. For you, it was really real, because I know that sometimes people will say things like, I don't know about this church thing. But for those of us that it's real for, it is absolutely positively real. And I like that you said it that way. Thank you.
You're welcome.
When it comes to your book, so many times people will say that we are inspired to write or that you're motivated to write. What was your motivation for sharing your story?
Well, I actually want those that have similar situations that might not be as intense as my situation was, but I want to help them to rise above their adversities and get back into life and start pitching and hang in there. But I want them to know that there's someone with a power greater than ours that can help them through their dilemma. All they have to do is believe and have faith and really dig down and find out if that's for them or not, so they can go on.
Now, even though this is Faith Talk Radio, I don't want to make any assumptions. So I'm going to ask, when you talk about your faith, what is your faith system called, or what are your religious beliefs about?
Well, my faith. When I was 9 years old, I used to get up real early in the morning. I still get up real early, but I used to walk the railroad tracks.
Mm-hmm.
And I was walking the railroad tracks one morning. I had a lollipop, and there was a man laying on the tracks, and I thought he was dead.
Mm-hmm.
And I touched him, and he jumped, and it scared me. I started crying, but all I had was a little lollipop, and he said he was hungry, and I gave him the lollipop. And ever since then, I've been trying to target the homeless and see if I can get an incentive program for them that can help them, because I believe they not only need nourishment for their bodies, but they need nourishment spiritually for their minds.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been trying to target different ways I can get a building or something so I can start an incentive program for the homeless and those less fortunate than myself.
That is really, really awesome. You never know how your life experiences are going to affect you. You never know, what. Sometimes it's something very small. Sometimes it's something, really major. Mm-hmm. But all it takes is just the right thing at the right time to make an impression on you. And I think regardless of what age you are, your spirit knows that this is something that needs to be done, and that this is what you've been purposed to do. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So when you are writing, what is your process? Well, before I ask that question, I want to ask this, and I tend to ask this of all of my authors, and that is, do you have a particular process, or do you have a particular environment that you need to have? Like how on the movies we see, the person goes off to the cabin in the woods and they write their book, or you go, to the beach or something like that. Do you need it to be absolutely quiet, or is it your laptop, a cup of coffee? How do you write?
Well, it doesn't have to be absolutely quiet because I learned how to work through noise, and anything distracting. But I like to work outside, and I don't necessarily have to go to the parks or anywhere. I can just go outside, put my little table and chair up, and be just as good, But I love to work outdoors.
Nothing like that fresh air to get you going. I can understand that. Now, when you are writing, what is your process? Are you one of those people that just you type everything that you're thinking, or are you kind of an outline person and then you go back and fill in? What is your process?
Well, I do a lot of research first, and I take notes and make a rough draft. And then I go back over it, because I write the scriptures down. And then I go back over them after I get all the ones I want. After I go through the King James Version study Bible, and I get the subtitles and what have you, and get them all down, and I do a lot of thinking process before I write anything down on paper. And that's what I do, and then if it don't look right, then I erase that and cross it out and put something else down, until it's just right. Because I can't, everything has to be in order. I can't send nothing out of order. And in God's word, there's nothing out of order.
That's right.
So everything has, because his words, you can't add nothing to it and you can't take nothing from it. So you have to be careful what you put down on paper concerning his words.
Right. Now, it's funny that you answered a question that I was going to ask, and that is, when you're doing scripture, which version or which translation do you prefer? And you said that you use the King James. Is there any particular reason why you like that one, or is that just that's how you learned it and that's just what kind of feels good to your heart, or what's your reason behind it?
Well, I like the King James study Bible because it's really very explicit. You know, it tells, it's more in depth than some Bibles because you go down in the explanations under the scriptures for the verses, and it's more of an in-depth study for me. You know, because I can go down there and I can read in that explanation what that verse actually meant. You know, whereas if I would read it on my own, I might lose something in the translation.
Right. Okay, I can understand that. So, when you were writing your book, were you inspired by someone while you were writing this particular book?
I'm glad you asked me that question. I've been inspired by. I was inspired by pastors and teachers. They took me under their wing as a child and just, you know, like took me through things, explain things to me. If I had questions, I'd always call the pastor. Just like now, if I get stumped on something, I'll call the pastor up and talk to him and ask him about this and that. I never lean to my own understanding because I could be way, way off. You know.
That is the wise woman. That's right.
You know, then I have to be careful because there's so many words that rhyme with the words that I'm putting down on paper. So I have to really be careful, you know, that I don't change the sentence by putting something else in and then don't go back and check it.
Right. No, that's really smart of you. And, you know, I think that it shows your maturity as a believer to understand that, you know, I have a question about this, or I want some clarification about this, and to know that you can go to your pastor, which also says a lot about your pastor, that you're able to you know, speak with their pastor and get that clarification. So that really says a lot about who you are learning under. So we are down to about our last minute before we go to break, and I want to make sure that everyone is able to get a copy of your book or to get in contact with you. So Joyce, what are the best ways for people who would like to follow you or get in contact with you or pick up a copy of the book? What's the best way to do that?
Well, actually, they can call me on my cell phone about the books, but the books are also at Amazon.com and Barnes and Noble. So that's where they're at.
Most
I sometimes I get some copies. You know, I have copies too, so they can also call me at my number or email me at my email address.
Okay, and what's your email address?
My email address, I have two. One is Joyce Lewis 3110 at yahoo.com, and one is Miss Lewis 0951 at gmail.com.
Alrighty, listeners, you have that contact information. We need to take a very short break, but when we come back, we will continue this conversation with Joyce Marie-Lewis. We'll be back right after this. And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am your host, Dr. Angela Chester. Today, my guest is Joyce Marie-Lewis, and she is the author of I Must Be About My Father's Business. Today, we're talking about learning to lean on God. So, Joyce, how does your environment and upbringing, how did that color the book? How did that determine some of the feel of the book, or did it determine the feel of the book?
Yes, as a child, I was very distraught as a child. I was taken away from my mom at the age of 5 years old. There were 7 of us, So there was me and my brothers and sisters were taken away, and we were into detention home, waiting to be placed somewhere in Waterloo, Iowa. That's where the detention home was. And then after the detention home, then they sent us to Davenport, Iowa, in the Annie Whitmire home, which was the boys and girls home. Mm-hmm. So we were there. I was 5, and then my brothers and sisters was there, and a couple of my uncles were there, the younger ones. Mm-hmm. But I was very, very, very annoyed by this because I couldn't understand why. Why did why did y'all do this thing to my family? Because I didn't. We had just came from Louisiana, because that's where I was born, Hammond, Louisiana. So we came to Iowa from Hammond, Louisiana, and this happened. Unfortunately, the welfare department had problems with my auntie, and I guess that's how that came about. And when they stormed in, there was no one really watching the kids, and my sister was up to the stove trying to fix something for us to eat. Mm-hmm. And the welfare department just stormed in and took everybody in the house.
Yeah.
So, but it bothered me more than it bothered everybody else. Because I could not understand that. So I had started going to church when I was 5. And I started singing in the choir when I was 9. And it was interesting enough for me that every time I went into the church, all the gloom and doom seemed to disappear. And I was happy. So I felt there had to be something to that church thing, me going. Then nobody really explained it to me. They just put me there, and I was like, as a child, you like, well, so why am I here? What am I doing here? And what's going on? You don't know these people, and and you just got, and you're just all way out there confused. I just, you just start crying. That's all you can do. And nobody want to give you no answers that could satisfy you any kind of way. So you don't have nobody really to lean on except for the Lord. And He didn't just enter my life because of that adversity. He didn't just do that. My family, my mom and my grandmama and them, they were very religious. My mom took me to church when I was 3 years old. And I still remember the ladies, the mothers that were in white. And I never did forget that. Never. And then when I got into the missionary department, it was a done deal. I've been in it everything. I've been on my missionary since I was 9 years old, and I'm gonna tell you right now, I wouldn't change and go back.
That's right. Right.
And couldn't nobody make me. I'm serious, because I've had a lot of pain and suffering since I've been here on this earth. But I also feel that with the details and entailment of my mission, that in order for me to be able to reach the people to try and help them, because there has really been some violence and rapes and all kinds of things going on in my life that could have deterred me and changed me into anything. So if it hadn't been for the Lord, I could have been, ain't no telling. There is no telling, and I really want the people to know that this is the way to go. Because your friend, they might have your back today, but they might not have your back tomorrow.
That's true. That is very
They
true.
might talk to you today, but then they might have something against you tomorrow. You never can tell, but the Lord, He stays the same.
That's right. That's right. You know, and I'm so glad that you were able to have that relationship with the Lord at such a young age, and that you understood then that though what was going on in your world, like, you know, with the whole, you know, your family and all of that, you knew that was craziness, but like, what are y'all doing, you know, to my family? But at least you were able to say, well, but I know that God has me, and that He's going to make everything okay. And I'm so glad that was established for you, because for so many people, like you said, they don't have that. It's not established, and then they don't know what to do. You know, they just don't have that backbone.
Amen.
Now, I know that with all that has gone on, and this might seem like a question that doesn't make any sense, and you may have even touched on it a little bit earlier. So, but just in case someone came onto the show a little bit later, at what age did you realize deep down inside that, you know what, I think I'm going to be a writer? I think this is what I need to do.
Well, I'm glad you asked that question. I've been anticipating all these questions. When I was 3 years old, my mom told me, she said when I was 3 years old that I would be out in the yard with a stick, drawing lines. Could nobody tell me I was not writing no words down?
Right.
I would be crying and mad at them if they would tell me I wasn't writing. And then I used to lay up under the big oak tree that was in our front yard and look up into the sky all the time and just think. Watch the clouds and everything, you know, just thinking, how's this, how's that, you know, why, you know, just really examining everything around me, you know, and making sure that I can really connect with it.
Right.
You know, because the outdoors, face-to-face with God's creation has always been my thing. I mean, I walked for 42 years before I even got in a car to drive, and I got on a bike when I was 32 years old and fell off of it, never got on it again.
She said, no, thank you, I am okay.
So, you know, but I love to walk. I wish I still could do it, but I love to walk. I walked everywhere. I just love the outdoors. The connection is just outstanding. I mean, if you don't really feel God's presence, I mean, just being out there is not, you know, and saying, oh, so this is another day. Oh, well, the sun's shining. Oh, no. It's more than that. It's always more than that. It's new grace every day that we're under. Because God lays His hands on us, and then He touches us with a finger of love to wake us up in the morning. So it's new grace every day that we're under, that He gives us to just really recognize and realize that there's someone that loves us, and it's a love that's unconditional.
Now, I understand what you're talking about, Joyce, because for me, it's going to the beach. And it doesn't matter if it's first thing in the morning, if it's in the middle of the day, or if it's at sunset, or, you know, if it's almost dusk. There is something to me about being at the beach that, like you said, it's more than just, okay, I'm alive today. There is, you feel God all around, and without trying to, you know, be too corny or anything like that. But I think that I understand what you say, that we all have our place where we really feel that we connect with God, and it just really and truly, it hits you in your heart, and you just know, like, my spirit right now is talking to God. And that I am okay. I'm extra okay in this moment. I am extra okay in this moment. And it really and truly gives you, you know, that confirmation that you can keep going, good or bad day, that you can keep, you know, that you can keep going, that it's going to be okay. I love it. I understand. I understand what you understand.
Yes.
I really, really do. Now, when you determined that you wanted to that you were going to be a writer, do you think that you were conscious of the fact that you wanted to write in the religious genre of books? Like, was that your purpose? I guess my question is, did you purposely say, I'm going to write a book that is going to say religion or Christianity or, like that? Or did you say, I'm just going to write my book, and however it comes out, that's how it comes out?
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, I wrote first thing I did, I wrote some poetry for the church. I was 15. And when I took the Writers Institute aptitude test when I was 13, and at the age 15, they sent me a letter telling me that I was considered to be an author already.
Wow.
They told me I could write in any field I choose.
Good job. Okay.
So I wrote for a lot of different people on different things, but my thing was writing for the church. And I've been in a lot of different churches where they need some people to bring out some things.
Right.
That sugarcoating in the church is not. You got to be real.
I can understand that. Yes, ma'am.
So they, 9 times they have problems with me because I am real, but I don't care. Because eventually they're going to have to find out for themselves.
That's right. I mean, it's different depending on, the different things that you could talk about. If you're talking about, fashion or beauty, or if you're talking about cars or, vacations, that's different. But when it comes to the word, then, it is not up to us to change it to fit other people's feelings for that day. So I can understand. And thank you for not changing what God has already written. I do appreciate your doing that. Well, listeners, we need to take our break at this particular moment, but don't worry. When we get back, we will continue this conversation with author Joyce-Marie-Lewis. She's the author of I Must Be About My Father's Business. We'll be back right after this.
Hi everyone, Dr. Angela here. Did you know that Daily Spark is now on Facebook? That's right, you can visit with me at facebook.com/Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I want to know more about what you're thinking. I'd love to know, which interview did you find the most entertaining or the most informative? I want to talk to you, and I want you to be able to talk to me. Simply visit facebook.com/Daily Spark with Dr. Angela.
And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I'm your host, Dr. Angela Chester. My guest today is author Joyce-Marie-Lewis. She's the author of the book I Must Be About My Father's Business. So today we are learning how to lean on God, even at an early age. And isn't it true that God will definitely sustain us no matter what we are going through? And we were just talking about that, good times or bad times. The Lord is always there, and it is wonderful and comforting to know that He is there for us. Now, I want to ask you this, Joyce. Now, so many times folks have, they say that I have a mission, I have a vision, I have a purpose, and I have used those words interchangeably myself when I'm talking to some of my guests. So I want to ask you, what is your mission, or what is your purpose, or what is your motivation when it comes to the writings of any of the books that you choose, whether it's like a fiction book, or if it's a book of poetry, or if it's a book about our faith, about our belief system? What is your mission in writing? What are you trying to accomplish?
Well, outside of it being gratifying to me, and I'm wanting everyone that reads it, I want them to be gratified too, and get them to thinking about some things, either want to change some things or, get their lives back on track or whatever's going on at the time. But basically, when I'm writing, it's more like if I can just reach somebody, if I could just let them know how real this is and how important and urgent it is for us to be true disciples, not just disciples, true disciples of Jesus Christ, and why we should accept him. Because for one thing, he died for us, and he didn't have to do that.
Exactly.
And he took the humiliation. We think we be humiliated. He was humiliated. And I actually cry when I be talking about it because it's so real, because he didn't have to. And I can feel them piercing him in the side and spitting on him and mocking him. And it just gets to me. And I don't want to, I'm not trying to force my belief off on anyone. But I want them to know whatever they believe in, they got to be real with it. But the realest thing they could believe in is the Lord, because I don't think there's any other God except the Lord. Because he said in his commandment, I am a jealous God. I shall have no other gods before me. So I really don't think there are any others that could make the grade.
I agree with you.
And that's the way I've been all my life, and you can talk to me all day. I've had questions asked about, well, if God is so this and that, why did he take my mom? Why did he take my uncle? Why did he do this? Why did he do that? God doesn't take anything. God allows things to happen for us to realize and focus on what the big picture is and what it's really all about. We be hitting everything but the right things. This is the center of our life right here. I believe, this is my belief, and I'm not going to take it back. But he's the center of everything. I thank him for everything, because without him, nothing would be.
You made such a good point when you say that when you think about all that Christ has done for us, that it gets you emotional. And I have been really emotional, especially emotional 2 times when it comes to what Christ has done for me. Once was a play at church, and the young man played Jesus so well in the church play for Good Friday. It was the Easter play, and it was on Good Friday. And I just cried, because, they did they dressed like the Roman soldiers and the whole 9 yards, and they were cracking the whip, and he has the cross on his back. And I was a little kid. So to me, that was extremely impressionable. Everything that I had learned really became super real at that moment, because I can see it. The next time that I just felt overly emotional was, and I don't know if you saw the movie, maybe some of our listeners have as well, is when The Passions of the Christ came out, the movie by, what is his name? The guy that played Braveheart. I can't think of his name. Right? Mel Gibson.
The one that plays Braveheart?
Yes, the Passions of the Christ, the one that was by him. Oh my!
The one that plays Braveheart. Braveheart is called Van Damme.
I just cried and I cried and I cried.
Yeah, I saw that one too.
I'm listening to I'm watching the movie and I'm just like, Yeshua, oh my goodness, and my heart is just breaking for Mary, and you are reminded so much from each person's perspective of how painful these things were for those people. And I can only imagine, because I'm so far removed, and I appreciate all that God has done for me, but my heart just broke so much in the realization of it all. So I have to agree. I think that authors especially can appreciate it, because we have to be able to take what's in our heads and put it on paper for other people to understand our vision. So I think it probably hits us a little bit differently than it hits some other folks. So I have to ask you this. What is next for Miss Joyce-Marie-Lewis? What do you have going on in the works for you in your future?
Well, in my future right now, I've already sent a book into Westbow Press called Total Rejection. It's my autobiography, and it has 4 chapters in it.
Okay.
And I'm also right now on a book called New Grace, and it's got 6 chapters in it. So I write all the time, but I do a lot of research. So I do this every day, so it's like taking a drink of water.
I love it. Well, you know, that's a wonderful thing. When I hear that you have other books that are coming out, then that simply means for me that we will have to have you back on the show at a future time, so that you can definitely share those books with our listeners as well. So we have about 3 minutes left in the show. So I want to ask you, and I always like to give my authors an opportunity to if there's one thing that you want for a reader to take away from your book, if there's one thing that you really want them to get out of what you have shared, what would that one thing be?
Be true to yourself. There's a lot of people that are not true to themselves at all. I mean, I feel like if you're a deceitful person, if you deceive somebody, I believe you're deceiving yourself more. If you can't be for real with yourself, how you gonna be for real with anybody else?
Yep, that was a nugget of wisdom right there. That was a bomb. I love it. I love it. And there's no better way to say that. No better way to say that. Well, Miss Joyce-Marie-Lewis, I want to say thank you so much for being on my show with me today, and for sharing with our listening audience here that about your book, I Must Be About My Father's Business. Thank you for reminding us to lean on the Lord. Thank you. And listeners, thank you for joining me as well. May the Lord continue to shine His face upon you. May you receive His grace and His mercy in all that you do. Bye-bye.
Let's prepare for the summer harvest. What are your plans for this summer? Are you planning on spending extra time with your family and relatives? Do you have a class reunion coming up? Are you planning a vacation to have fun in the sun? Summer tends to get people thinking about the fun things that they could be doing, and oftentimes we forget about reaping. It's time to prepare for harvest. That's what we planted last fall. It's time to prepare for the summer harvest. Farmers have one purpose in planting wheat. It's planning for the harvest. It takes hard work to have a bountiful harvest. You cultivate the ground, you plant the seed, you pray for rain, and then when the harvest is ripe, you cut and harvest that wheat. Jesus and the Apostle Paul gave us instructions concerning the wheat. Scripture equates preparing the harvest with prayer. Matthew 9:37-38, the Living Translation, reminds us. He said to the disciples, "The harvest is so great, but the workers are so few. So pray to the Lord who is in charge of the harvest. Ask him to send out more workers for his field." I like the way that Eugene Peterson in The Message translates Matthew 9:36-38. When he looked out over the crowds, his heart broke. So confused and aimless they were, like sheep with no shepherd. "What a huge harvest," he said to the disciples. "How few workers. On your knees and pray for harvest hands." Jesus is talking about a spiritual harvest with men and women, young people, boys and girls, accepting Jesus as Lord and Savior. Our harvest fields are located where we live, in our neighborhoods, where we work, our family, and our friends.
Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed the show.